Welcome learners, I am Dr. Gopal Dutt from the School of Vocational Studies, Uttarakhand Open University, Haldwani. In today's session, we are here about to discuss exception handling fundamentals in Java, exception types and uncaught exceptions. So these are the learning objectives of this session. After completion of this session, a learner will be able to know the basics of exceptional handling in Java, types of exceptions, the keywords those are used in Java related to exceptional handling, and some of the key reasons to occur exception during the program. In the last lecture, we were discussing about how to apply interfaces, role of interfaces, and variables in interfaces. So I hope the last lecture that was useful for you all. Now in this session, first need to understand what is an exception. Basically, an exception is an event which occurs during the execution of a program that disrupts the normal flow of the program's instructions. When an error occurs within a method, the method creates an object and hands it off to the runtime system. The object called an exception object. The exception object contains information about the error, including its type and the state of the program when the error occurred. Creating an exception object and handing it to the runtime system is called throwing an exception. Again, I am repeating the key statement. Creating an exception object and handing it to the runtime system is called throwing an exception. So we can say exception is an unwanted or unexpected event which occurs during the execution of a program or during the program runtime. Exceptions can be caught and handled by the program. Exception handling is a mechanism to handle the runtime errors in Java programming. So there are some probable reasons due to which an exception occurs during the program execution. There are some typical kind of reasons, maybe some more reasons thereat due to which an exception occurs during the program execution. So one of the probable reason to occur an exception is invalid user input. May be possible a user can put invalid inputs. So this may lead an exception. Another reason may be the device failure. Sometimes during the program execution, maybe a device can failure. This is again a reason to occur an exception. The next possible reason to occur an exception is the loss of network connection. Sometimes during the program execution, there may be a possibility of loss of network connection. This also leads occurring an exception. And the next one is some physical limitations of the machine, such as out of disk memory. In some cases, such kind of reason also leads the exception during the program execution. And the most probable is coding errors. The programmer can do different kinds of mistakes. So such kind of mistakes, those can't be caught during the program checking or during the manual checking of the program by the programmer. Such kind of coding errors also leads an exception. And one more but not least, we can say trying to open an unavailable file also leads the exception. So there are some typical examples, some typical reasons, those can be the cause of occurring an exception during the programming. The advantage of exception handling in Java, this is the most important thing to know why exception handling is important. For a well versed programmer or developer, he or she must know the advantages of handling the exceptions, such as the first advantage we can say the meaningful reporting of an error. If somebody or someone during the program development tries to maintain the way how to handle exceptions in Java, so the first outcome of such kind of efforts comes in the form of meaningful error reporting. And the next one, we can complete program execution. The flow of our program execution can be maintained. We can identify the error if someone properly maintains the exception handling mechanism. And the next one is easy identification of program code and error handling code, so that if someone tries to maintain exception handling mechanism, so that is very easy to identify the program code and the probable code where error may occur. And another advantage is propagation of errors, that is again an advantage. And the last one but not least, identifying error types. If someone tries to maintain the mechanism of exception handling, so that is easier for large scale projects to identify error types and can easy to treat such different kinds of errors. So there are some common Java exceptions, those may occur during the program execution. So in the tabular format, the left side is exception type and the right side column shows the cause of such kind of exceptions, such as the very common exception which occurs during the program execution is arithmetic exception. Such kind of exceptions occurs when an arithmetic operation, illegal arithmetic operation we must say, happened. Such kind of exceptions is thrown when exceptional conditions occurred during the arithmetic operation. Another common Java exception is array index out of bounds exception. This is also defined in Java library. Such kind of exception indicates that an array has been accessed with an illegal index. The index is either negative or greater than or equal to the size of the array. Next exception is class not found exception. The cause of such type of exception is to access a class whose definition is not found. Another common Java exception is file not found exception. This exception is raised when a file is not accessible or does not open. So sometimes the programmer tries to open a file which does not open, so it may be possible the file not found exception occurs. IO exception, it is thrown when an input output operation failed or interrupted. Another exception, that is interrupted exception. Such type of exception is occurred when a thread is waiting, sleeping or doing some processing and it is interrupted. Some more common Java exceptions are mentioned here. In brief, I am going to describe each of them. One more exception, that is no such field exception. Such type of exception occurred when a class does not contain the field or a variable of a specific type. Another exception is no such method exception. Such type of exception occurred when trying to access a method that is not available or that is not found. One more exception that is commonly we use to face such problem, that is called null pointer exception. This exception is raised when referring to the members of a null object and represents nothing. If someone will try to do such kind of activity, null pointer exception can occur. Another common Java exception is number format exception. Many times the Java programmer used to face such type of exceptions. This exception is raised when a method could not convert a string into a numeric format. One is runtime exception. This is again a common Java exception, or we can say built-in Java exception. This represents an exception that occurs during runtime. The next Java common exception is string index out of bound exception. Such type of exception is thrown by string class methods to indicate that an index is either negative or greater than the size of the string. One more is illegal argument exception. This exception will throw the error or error statement when the method receives an argument which is not accurately fit to the given relation or condition. It comes under unchecked exception. Later in this discussion, we will try to explain different types of exceptions. So, we will explain checked and unchecked exceptions thereat. So, one more exception type is illegal state exception. This is again comes under the common Java exceptions. This exception will throw an error or error message when the method is not accessed for a particular operation in the application. So, we were discussing common Java exceptions. Now, Java exception handling keywords. There are some specific keywords, those are specifically used for handling exceptions in Java. So, one of them is try. Try is a keyword. We must write it into a small case or small letters. The try keyword is used to specify a block where we should have a possibility of occurring an exception. Again, I am repeating the statement. We should try to use the try block, which starts with try keyword, where we have a possibility of occurring an exception. We cannot use try block alone. It means the try block must be followed by either catch or finally block. So the next keyword is catch. Catch is again in to use in small letters CATCH. The catch block is used to handle the exception. It must be preceded by try block, which means we cannot use catch block alone. It can be followed by finally block later. This is optional, may be followed by finally block or may not be. And the third keyword is finally. As we know, all Java keywords are in lowercase letters, so it means the finally keyword is also will be in lowercase letters. The finally block is used to execute the necessary code of the program. It is executed whether an exception is handled or not. The next keyword is throw. The throw keyword is used to throw own or user defined exception. This is very important. If someone want to define their own exception, so at that time we have to use the keyword named throw. The next keyword is throws. The throws keyword is used to declare exception. It specifies that there may occur an exception in the method. It does not throw an exception. It is always used with method signature. So let us try to discuss different types of exceptions. Those are available in Java. So Java defines several types of exceptions that relate to its various class libraries. Java also allows users to define their own or user defined exceptions. So let us see. The first type of exception is called built-in exceptions. Built-in exceptions are again subdivided, that is called checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions. The second type of exception in Java is named user defined exceptions, and third type of exceptions are called errors. So let us start with built-in exception. In the category of built-in exceptions, the first one is checked exception. What do you mean by checked exceptions? Checked exceptions are called compile time exceptions because such exceptions are checked at the time of compiling the program. Checked exceptions are exceptional conditions that a well-written application should anticipate and recover from it. Checked exceptions are subject to the catch or specify requirement. A well-written program will catch such type of exceptions and notify the user about the mistake. All exceptions are checked exceptions except for those indicated by errors as runtime exception and their subclasses. In the category of built-in exception, one subcategory, as I said, is unchecked exception. So let us understand what are the unchecked exceptions. As it implies, the compiler will not be able to anticipate unchecked exceptions during the program compiling. In other words, we can say, if a program throws an unchecked exception, and even if we did not handle or declare it, the program would not give a compilation error. Errors and runtime exceptions are collectively known as unchecked exceptions. Once again, this is the key statement. Errors and runtime exceptions are collectively known as unchecked exceptions. So we were discussing about built-in exceptions. As I said, built-in exceptions are of two types: checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions. Now let us move to next slide, that is user defined exceptions. As its name implies, user can define their own exception, so that called user defined exceptions. In some cases, the built-in exceptions in Java are not able to describe a certain situation. In such cases, user can also create their own exception, which are called user defined exceptions or custom exception, sometimes also known as custom exceptions. And the last type of exceptions, that is called error. Such type of exceptional conditions means error in which circumstances error comes. We can say, in other words, the circumstances in which exceptional, or these are exceptional conditions that are external to the application and that the application usually cannot anticipate or recover from. Some example of errors are out of memory error, virtual machine error, assertion error, etc. In some circumstances, we can't catch such type of exceptions are comes under the error. So let us try to explain with the help of an example how exception handling in practical manner happened in programming, in Java programming especially. So let us try to use try and catch statement to demonstrate example how the exception can handle. So look at that. There are some basic points about this example. First of all, here we are only using try and catch statement, but I am trying to explain the finally block is always executed no matter whether there is an exception or not. It means finally block is optional. You may use or you may not use. The finally block is optional, as I said. For each try block, there can be only one finally block. So let us see, there is a example which represents the use of try and catch. So there is a class named main, as we have a main function also, but there is a difference. The main function is a predefined one and in available in lowercase letters. The class is defined here with capital M, or we can say the main function starts, and just inside the main function we have started the try block. As earlier in the previous slide we were discussing, the try block is used where we should have a possibility of generating occurring an error, right? So here we are doing one mistake, that is no divide by 0. So this is a variable integer type where we are trying to divide 5 divided by 0, may be the possibility of error. So in the catch block, just after the try block, we have mentioned there is a instance of in class that arithmetic exception. As earlier I said, there are some common exceptions. One of them is arithmetic exception is a common exception in Java. Its instance E is defined there at, and what will happen when this main function will start to execute in the third line where the variable is declared divide by 0, assign 5 divided by 0, that may lead an exception, and arithmetic exception instance that E will handle this error, this exception, and the system dot out dot println, this is a method which will display the statement arithmetic exception, and with the help of this instance E dot get message is a method which will try to print the message that is available in the instance arithmetic exception. That instance right now is E. You may use any other name. E is a object name, instance name. So see its output, that will be the output. Such kind of output is defined here, divide by 0. So get message can print, again look at that example back, see E dot get message will print the message by divide by 0 error. So that leads the error. So the next part of this session, there are some methods which are used to print exception information. One of them is print stack trace. There are some key methods which are very useful to know, I think you to know it. So one of them is print stack trace. This method prints exception information in the format of, as mentioned here, I made it underline, name of the exception and description of the exception. Its example is here. I have a code block where the program to print the exception information using print stack trace method. See, I'll show the output of this program. Let us again, some arithmetic error is there at try block is mentioned, and we are trying to do an divide by 0 error that will lead. So with the help of catch block we can handle this exception, and E dot print stack trace method we are trying to display the message. See what we will get the output, what output we will get. See, this is the output. So that output is of print stack trace method. Okay, so again one more method which is very important to know to print, that method prints about the exception information, that is called toString. This method prints exception information in the format of name of exception and description of exception. Again the same code block I have used here. This code block is about to print the exception information using toString method. So same thing is here at, the change is only one. Instead of print stack trace we have used toString. See, one error arithmetic exception is occurred inside the try block. The catch block handles, and the catch block handles, and system.out.println e.toString will give you output. That output is here at you are seeing in the slide. And the next method which is used for printing or displaying exception information is get message. Earlier in the program we used get message, but here we are trying to explain this method prints exception information in the format of name of exception and description of exception. Look at the code block, the same repetitive code I have used here, so that you may compare all three code blocks in reference to three different exception information displaying methods, either toString, get message, or print stack trace. So look at that catch block. Again, e.getMessage method is here we have used. So in that case the output will be like this: java.lang.arithmetic exception, and the name of exception is divide by 0. So we were discussing the three methods, key methods, which are popularly used to display the exception information in different ways. So let us discuss about uncaught exceptions. Java actually handles uncaught exceptions according to the thread in which they occur. When an uncaught exception occurs in a particular thread, Java looks for what is called an uncaught exception handler. Actually, an implementation of the interface that is uncaught exception handler. The latter interface has a method handle exception which the implementer overrides to take appropriate action, such as printing the stack trace to the console. As we will see later, we can actually install our own instance of uncaught exception handler to handle uncaught exceptions of the particular thread or even for whole system. The specific procedure is as follows. When an uncaught exception occurs, the Java virtual machine does the following. The first one, it calls a special private method called dispatch uncaught exception on the thread class in which the exception occurs, and then it terminates the thread in which the exception occurred. They are the two steps. See the example of uncaught exception. We will try to understand how to implement thread.uncaught exception handler. Before implementing the handler, let us understand how exceptions are caused by an example as follows. So there is a simple example. If I will mention this code block, what may occur? So there is a output also. There is no mechanism to maintain this exception, so such kind of exception or output may be realized. So if we will try to maintain such exception, what will happen? See, so the example is about how to set default uncaught exception handler method works. That is the real question. So we are trying to use set default uncaught exception handler. How to use such method? So the set default uncaught exception handler method of thread class sets the default handler invoked when a thread abruptly terminates due to an uncaught exception and no other handler has been defined for that thread. So there is a syntax: public static void set default static exception handler, and it takes argument thread.uncaught exception handler. The name of instance is right now EH, and it does not return any value. So its code block is defined here at the class defined java set default exp defined by the user, and that implements runnable interface, and a function that is public function non-returning called run is there. It throws new runtime exception, and main function starts here at instance of thread class is defined in such code block, and you will see its output how the uncaught exception may be handled using such method. See, that is the difference. The uncaught exception may be handled by this method. So at the end of this session, the learning outcomes of this session are: the learner will be able to have the knowledge of basics of exceptional handling in Java, different types of exceptions, the practical exposure of different Java keywords, those are specifically used for handling exceptions. In the next lecture, we will discuss more about exception handling using try and catch block, Java's built-in exception with the help of example, and own exception or user defined exceptions. So thank you very much.